Hey folks, today we're going to apply binding to this beautiful Telecaster. We're going to go with a yellow cream and green binding. And so we're going to put the yellow cream on the inside and the green on the outside. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to take our binding and stretch it out like this because we want to find our midpoint. And that is where we're going to attach to the bottom of the guitar here so that we know we've got enough length for both the sides. But the reason why we sit there and do that is as we hit the inside curves with the binding, they sit better into the inside curves. And so that natural curl away gives you that natural curve. And so if your binding comes straight, then go ahead and roll it into two tighter circles. And as you work with it, it's going to allow you to do, and as you wait for it to sit, it'll handle that much better. But you can see already, well, maybe if I turned, you could see better. But you can see already, when it pushes away, I can just push on the binding, and then the binding just sits into that curve naturally. So that when this is affixed here, that isn't going to naturally bow back out, because its inclination is to sit on the curve it's already designed to. And so let me give this a good piece of tape right here as well. Okay, now we're gonna, this gets a little bit delicate right here, and this binding is a little more fragile than the stuff I normally work with. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll roll that one here in a minute, because we're gonna have to use the heat. This is a little more brittle than the binding I'm used to working with. Again, you can see that in working with it that way, it just sits around these curves so much better. And really, I'm just pressing it up as I go. So a piece of tape there. I got called away while I was working on this binding, and so I quickly applied some more tape to kind of hold it in place, because I didn't have much time to start forming the binding to the guitar with the heat gun. Now let's go ahead and just start heat forming it. Now this binding is more brittle than the binding that I usually work with, and so I can't make those big curves around here as easily without warming up the binding. I'm going to remove this tape right here, because the curve we're working on is right here. Get access so that we can really see this corner here really well, because we're going to go ahead and use the heat gun to melt that into place. And we'll go ahead and concentrate that right there. Okay. Of course, try not to burn yourself, right? Got that bent pretty well. It's not quite molded to that shape yet. It's still wanting to pull out. But I need to get something in here to kind of secure it, other than my fingers. So I'll burn my fingers. I'm going to hold that in place while that cools down. Another thing that you can do is take an object like this and press in with it. And that helps hold it when the binding is still hot. So the next thing I'm going to try to do is instead of cutting it here, and I've done this before, I'm going to go ahead and warm this up and start bending that way. If it breaks right here on the bend, that's okay. Then I can just cut it and do that. But I'd like to kind of keep it as one piece if I can. So. Stop. And so it's bending not where I want it to bend, but rather here. So we're going to help it a little bit. And get a piece of tape. And that bend actually came out pretty well so far, but it's going to need more help. So we need to heat back up. Bad thing about that is as you heat it back up, it also loosens the glue on the tape as well. So this binding is more brittle than what I'm usually work with, and so I don't want to give it any excuses to snap. Okay. Just set that. So it's already got a natural curve to it from when I had it rolled up, and so that made it easier to set this in here. But what I was afraid of is snapping it before it was ready to do it, because as I was mocking this up with another piece of binding before, it did exactly that. And go ahead and make it want to stay in that shape. We're going to wick our acetone down in between our binding. We're going to wipe all our excess off, make sure we got it off. And then we're going to come in, make sure our binding is both pressed. Sometimes when you press, you'll feel more acetone come out. So let's get another piece of tape. And so you're better off stopping and going ahead and wiping off your excess. Okay. And so now I'm going to pull this piece of tape off, and we're going to go from there to there. Awesome. Okay. And again, smaller runs are better, which I'm just saying now that I'm saying, now that I'm not doing it, they should be. Get that one to come off. Having a little bit of acetones on here to clean up any residual mess. Saves you a lot of work. So, you know, as you do this, the thing to remember is go ahead, give that acetone a little time to wick down between the binding. Make sure that you wipe away all your excess. Do small pieces, because you can see here wherever I do a large run that you end up putting acetone in it twice. And it's just easier to work with a smaller section. You can go ahead and secure it and it's easy. The other thing to do is you give yourself a little bit of a lead on where you put the acetone, because it's going to wick down into the other areas, and if you get too close to where you already have tape, then it's going to get under that tape. It can mess with the binding, and so you'll see I'll remove a piece of tape and I'll wipe it down again with the rag to get the extra acetone off, because the acetone between the tape and the binding will continue to kind of melt away at the tape, and it will make your binding really melt away at the binding and make your binding really kind of ugly. And so one of those things to sit there and kind of consider. The biggest piece of advice I can give you is that as you go through and you do things like this, take your time. And if you're getting frustrated, take a break and walk away. Just get it to a point where you can walk away and then do it. And then when you come back, you tend to be a whole lot more clear-headed about the whole thing. And it just makes it a lot less work to have to come back and fix before. So you can see here where I'm pulling off the tape and I'm redoing it and I'm cleaning it with, I'm getting a little more acetone on the rag and cleaning it off. It makes it a bunch easier when you're scraping the binding later. And so here again, now I'm going back to a little bit of a smaller run. I'm pulling tape off when it's popping up. And so you want to take that tape off as soon as possible, because like I said, the acetone gets underneath it and it can ruin both your binding and your base finish that you've already got down. And you know, like I said, I've seen you guys on Texas Toast do this really quick. Matt can do it really quick, but for me, I have to sit there and take my time, or it will not come out right. And so I'd rather take my time and have to fast forward through the video this way than let it take forever. It's like everything else, patience pays off. Just do a little bit at a time, and it will pay off. And you can see that, you know, it gives you the opportunity to go and check. Did I push down on the binding while I'm pushing in? Because your natural tendency is just to go ahead and push in the binding. And you forget to push down. And then when you get it all done and it's all adhered to the body and you're pulling it off and you're getting ready to scrape, and you see you've got this really small gap between the fabric and the binding, and that just comes from not having gone ahead and make sure you pressed it down. All right, so there we have it. We've got our back binding done. We have our front binding done. Now all we need to do is wait for that to cure, and we can scrape the binding flush, and it's ready for clear. So as always, enjoy your guitar journey, and I want to thank you for joining mine. If you've enjoyed this video at all, check out the rest of the series here or some of the other videos. Check out the links in the description. And if you like everything, go ahead and subscribe. Take care, folks.